Today's passage is Psalm chapter 9 verses 12 through 20. Let's read together. For he who avenges blood remembers. He does not ignore the cries of the afflicted. Lord, see how my enemies persecute me. Have mercy and lift me up from the gates of death, that I may declare your praises in the gates of daughter Zion, and there rejoice in your salvation. The nations have fallen into the pit they have dug. Their feet are caught in the net they have hidden. The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the work of their hands. The wicked go down to the realm of the dead, all the nations that forget God. But God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. Arise, Lord. Do not let mortals triumph. Let the nations be judged in your presence. Strike them with terror, Lord. Let the nations know they are only mortal. Amen. I will be sharing a message with you today on the theme, Arise, O Lord. Each morning we have been meditating on the Psalms, and it feels particularly fitting to do so in this late autumn season. It is a season for contemplation and poetry. In this season perfect for reflection, I pray that you, our dear church members, may experience a deep fellowship with God, remembering his grace with hearts full of gratitude. Today's psalm is also a psalm of David. The book of Psalms is divided into 5 books, and the first consists mostly of psalms by David. David was a man who experienced the ascents and descents of life more profoundly than most. He rose to the status of a national hero in his youth, but was soon branded a traitor and forced to live as a fugitive. After many twists and turns, he ascended to the throne, but even as a king, his life was not entirely peaceful. He had a loyal soldier killed to take his wife, and he also suffered a major rebellion at the hands of his own son. Sometimes, when I think about life, I wonder if a life with some undulations, like David's, might be better than a smooth one. A peaceful life is a good thing, but if, in looking back, there's nothing particularly memorable, it seems that would make for a rather bland life. The hardships, the painful memories, the sleepless nights, they are incredibly difficult in the moment, but looking back, they often become our stories. For us as Christians, they become our testimonies. Perhaps the reason David wrote so many psalms is that after experiencing so many of life's ups and downs, those experiences became his poetry and his songs. As is the case with many of David's psalms, the theme of today's psalm is a cry for divine justice. Many believe that Christians should never desire revenge, but the Bible's perspective is more nuanced. Of course, the ideal is to love our enemies and not desire retribution. However, this is a difficult standard for any human to meet. The Psalms show us that it is not a sin to cry out to God for justice against those who wrong us. However, there is a very important distinction to be made here. We must not take revenge ourselves or exact retribution with our own hands. We must entrust it completely to God. Christian faith in this context is the conviction that God will act justly on our behalf. In today's text, David is crying out for justice. What was his situation when he wrote this psalm? Let us read verse 13 together. Lord, see how my enemies persecute me. Have mercy and lift me up from the gates of death. Amen. David is crying out to God about his suffering. Someone hates him, and he is in distress because of it. However, David does not attempt to retaliate against those who hate him and cause him pain. He is entrusting the matter of justice solely to God. Let us read verse 19 together. Arise, Lord, do not let mortals triumph. Let the nations be judged in your presence. Amen. David is pleading for God to arise. He is not seeking to take matters into his own hands, but is asking God to act. He is praying for God to arise, so that mortals will not triumph, and the godless nations will be judged. In essence, he is praying, God, please enact your justice. God, please vindicate me. Entrusting justice to God is not an easy task. In fact, it requires great determination and faith. This is because when people suffer unjustly, they are often overcome by emotion and are tempted to act on those emotions rashly, without regard for the consequences. So, at times it can feel as though God's intervention is too late for our urgent situation, or that God seems to be moving too slowly. We often feel hurt and disappointed, thinking, I am in such pain, why is God ignoring my suffering? Why is he silent? At such times, a doubtful thought can arise. Has God forgotten me? Does God not remember me? Here, the concepts of forgetting and remembering emerge, and understanding them is very important in our life of faith. In today's psalm, forgetting and remembering are mentioned repeatedly. First, the origin of the wicked's sin is forgetting. Let us read verse 17 together. The wicked go down to the realm of the dead, all the nations that forget God. Amen. Here, David refers to the nations as nations that forget God. Forgetting God is the root of sin. When people forget God, they sin freely, committing wicked acts they would never dare to do in His presence. It is because they have forgotten God that they receive His judgment. Forgetting can be a sin. We must examine ourselves to see if we have ever caused God sorrow by forgetting the grace He has bestowed upon us. I pray that this morning, our church members will once again remember the delicate touches of love God has given us. Next, what does God do to those who have forgotten Him? He reveals Himself to them, and He does so through judgment. Let us read verse 16 together. The Lord is known by His acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the work of their hands. Amen. God makes Himself known to those who have forgotten Him. He reveals Himself through judgment. By executing judgment, the wicked are ensnared by the work of their own hands. Through judgment, God shows the wicked that He is alive, and that He remembers all they have done. Finally, there are people who are the complete opposite. They are the people whom God remembers. Verse 12 speaks of God's remembrance this way. Let us read verse 12 together. For He who avenges blood remembers. He does not ignore the cries of the afflicted. Amen. Here, God is revealed as He who avenges blood. In other words, He is the one who carries out justice on our behalf. And God will remember and bring justice to those who cause the bloodshed. This is because God is one who never forgets the cries of the poor, the heart-wrenching cries of the afflicted. I believe that God will never forget the prayers we pour out before Him, the prayers we offer up to Him this morning. I encourage you, our dear church members, to pray before God with that faith. God never forgets and surely hears the prayers offered with the humble hearts of the poor and the mournful hearts of the afflicted. Verse 18 contains a similar statement about God's remembrance. Let us read verse 18 together. But God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. Amen. God never forgets the needy. To be remembered by God, not forgotten, this is the true blessing and genuine grace we enjoy as believers. Faith is entrusting justice to God. We can do so because we have the conviction that God will never forget us. God still remembers us. God will surely remember us. I pray that all our church members will live out this day with that faith. Dear beloved church members, God does not forget us. God will surely arise and intervene in our situations and difficulties. Even if things seem to progress slowly, even if recovery is not quick, and even if what we hope and pray for is not fulfilled right away, there is something we must remember. God does not forget. God never forgets our prayers, our hopes, and the prayers His children offer with tears. He surely remembers. Just as God remembers us, we must also remember Him. Let us live our lives holding fast to the truth that God remembers. He remembers us today. He will remember all our needs, our prayers, and our hopes. As we remember the God who never forgets, may we also strive never to forget God. I bless you in the name of the Lord.